Good morning, it's Brady at East Rosebud here to tie with you today. Today we're going to tie a streamer I've kind of come up with called a masked fox. Weightless streamer, good mix of materials, both natural and synthetic, and just an overall fun tie. Let's get into this fly. We're going to tie it on the back half. It's going to be a Umpqua 302 streamer hook in a size 4. We'll just start our thread and work back towards the bend here. Our first material here is going to be Marabou. And we'll keep this tail fairly short and sparse. Couple good wraps here. Pick it up and move forward. You can take this just to make it a little more manageable. Take the actual stalk of the Marabou feather and spin it up. Couple wraps up there. We'll cut that out. And then tie down the rest of this excess material. All right, next material is going to be Palmer Chenille in pearl, size medium. Tie that in right at the tail. Run our thread up close to the eye. We do need a little bit of space for a third material on this trailer hook. We'll go ahead and work that forward. Make sure you're preening back fibers that may get caught. And go ahead and tie that off. Next material is going to be Arctic foxtail in white. And we'll get a clump, maybe the quarter the size of a pencil here. And pull out any underfibers that we got going on. We will tie this in with the tips going forward. So one loose wrap, make sure it's set on top of the hook, and then a couple wraps back towards the tail. Carefully cut out that butt end of the foxtail. I'll add a couple more wraps, make sure everything's good and secure. And we're going to push this foxtail back right on top of the hook. One loose wrap, make sure everything stays where it's supposed to be. A couple firm wraps and we'll whip finish this thing. Okay, our trailer hook is done. We'll set that to the side. Move on to our front hook, which is a Umpqua 302 as well, just in a size 2 instead of a 4. So here our first order of business is just to lay down a really good thread base. As we tie in our articulation wire, if you don't have a good thread base for this for this wire to kind of sit on top of, it will wind up sliding a whole bunch and not sit the way you want it. So we're going to tie this wire on straight on top. Couple good wraps, make sure we're right on top of that hook and work back. we like where it's at, we'll work forward again, make sure everything's seated the way we like it. So to put this trailer hook on, we're going to take this wire and go underneath the bottom side of this hook. Kind of bend it over. Less is more to me on this step. You can add a bead if you want. You just run the risk of fouling with your front hook a fair amount. So I get a couple loose wraps in there and kind of pull it where I want it, bite down a little bit, and work back. So that looks good, not going to go anywhere. We'll take our wire cutters here and cut out our extra wire. We'll get up there and bury that end of the wire we just cut off. Next material is going to be some polar chenille in UV silver. Tie that in right at our wire tie-in point back here. Work forward towards the eye. Because there's going to be a fish mask on here, I like to, before I do this, set my fish mask on there and kind of understand where we need to end all these materials. We still have 3 or 4 materials to put in this thing, so you have to be mindful to not go too far or not go far enough, and then your head has nothing to bond to. We'll wrap this forward 3/4 of the way or so. Preen back your fibers just like we did with the Palmer chenille. Before I tie it off, I'm just going to check, see what we got for space. I'm going to get one more wrap in there. Tie that off. Now it helps to wet your fingers, kind of preen back these fibers a little bit and work back on top of them just a little ways. Make sure everything's laid back and no crazy stragglers here. Next step is another piece of Marabou, and we're going to palmer this Marabou instead of kind of stacking it like a tail. So I'll grab this by the tip, preen out some fibers here, tie that in just like you would a soft hackle or dry fly hackle. And we will go ahead, usually 2 or 3 turns depending on the piece of Marabou. We'll do it here, but take your time. Try not to trap a ton of fibers. Kind of preen back as you go. Get 2 good wraps before we get in there and trim that out. Carefully trim it out. Take my left hand and preen back those Marabou fibers. Pull out any loose junk in there. Now we're going to add some rubber legs. These are micro silicone legs in barred clear. You can add whatever color legs you like. I'm going to kind of split these evenly and lay them right on top of the hook. 1 wrap, and we'll take this far side and kind of peel it over towards the back. Once we got that one locked in, same deal on my side of the hook here. We'll leave those long for now so they're out of the way. Next, we're back with Arctic Fox. Gonna get a bigger clump here than the one on the trailer hook. Maybe a quarter bigger, something like that. Excuse me. And same deal here, we're going to tie it in with the tips going forward and a lot longer. We want this foxtail to kind of almost touch the eye of our trailer hook once we peel it back. Get in there, trim out that excess, clean up whatever you got going back here. And before we peel that back, we're going to add just a little bit of Ripple Ice Fiber. This is in Minnow Mix color. We don't need a ton of it here. Clump something like that. It's kind of squirrely material. You kind of have to play with it a little bit, pull out the stragglers. It's not uniform, so it takes a second. But I like to tie this in where our tips of most of this is just past the end of this foxtail. Right on top. Like that. Now we're going to push all this material back right on top of the hook, just like we did with that trailer hook. One loose wrap, make sure you like where it is. Get a couple good ones in there, and we'll whip finish it. While you're here, you can go ahead and trim these legs as well. Now all we have to do is add the fish mask, which is a size 7. I've already glued size 7 living eyes on it. Be pretty liberal with your super glue here. I use a gel super glue. It takes a little bit of time to set. So once you get it on there and get it where you want it, just leave it. Set it somewhere where you're not going to bump it. It'll probably take, 20 minutes to set where you want it to be hardened. But that is it. That's the Mass Fox articulated streamer. Super fun tie with some newer materials. Thanks for joining us.